terms of noise, I think it's fair to say now that that issue, as a result of this new understanding, is now put to rest. A couple other very quick things. You know, the building is not small in terms of scale, and as you saw, it occupies about 80% of the site plan. At the same time, the height is exactly the same height as my neighbors to the east. It's a 3-story building. It might be, you know, there's height restrictions, and we meet those. And so again, it's not going to tower over the rest of Main Street. It's the same height as most other 3-story buildings. It's quite a bit longer, but of course that is not as visible from Main Street. So the building, as I said, was specifically designed for that site with the guidelines that Wolfville has in mind. And so again, yes, it does take up quite a bit of space, but from a positive perspective, what that allows is a lot more people to be able to live downtown, and we all know the benefits of having people live in the place where they shop and go to restaurants and so forth. Another very legitimate concern, and I'm glad to see a number of our Wolfville residents that might be interested in living in a facility like this. It's designed and aimed at, obviously, there's a number of target markets and residents who we believe will live in these units. We've had a whole range of people live in our units in Antigonish. Obviously, we have students. Our target markets are seniors. These are perfect senior places for seniors primarily living alone. Although we have about 5 couples who are going to be living in our units next year already. So a combination of young professionals, students, and seniors is the target market. But one of the concerns was not all the units are accessible, and we right now we don't have an elevator plan. We don't have an elevator plan for a number of reasons. One is primarily it's a cost function. If we can bring the cost of these units down, we're able to lease them out at a much lower affordable rate. At the same time, we have about 15 units that are on the ground floor that are able to be reached, fully accessible by a ramp. So, you know, in our experience, if we have 15 seniors living in the building, that will be marvelous. And of course, some seniors will very easily, anybody who's mobility impaired can be on that ground floor. But of course, there's a second and third floors as well that are available. So I think we certainly will meet the requirement of having accessible units for our tenants. And of course, our building will meet all the requirements as mandated by the accessibility part of the Nova Scotia Building Code. And Nova Scotia actually has got the most stringent accessibility requirements of any building code in Canada. The accessibility provisions are local to Nova Scotia. They've been modified, and they're actually the highest. You'd be interested to know this. The Canadian Building Code now is changing the accessibility requirements to make them like Nova Scotia. So we've been ahead of the curve on that one, and our building will meet those accessibility requirements. And there's only a couple other final points here in terms of the concerns that were raised. One was about the size of the units, and I agree they're not for everybody. I have lived in a unit that size, actually smaller, for about 2 months, and I loved it. It meant I could clean my place up in 5 minutes. And I had to keep it clean because I had no choice. There was not enough counter space, although actually our tenants, and again you can ask Emily her experience living in one of our units. I think she was, when we were driving down, she mentioned she was blown away by the amount of storage that she found in her unit. She thought that she had brought cabinets and so on for more storage. She had to send them all back home. So they're actually, and it's because the units are custom designed and built. All our furniture is custom designed. There's actually more storage in our units than you'd find in most one-bedroom apartments. But they're not for everybody, I agree. They're not for couples with children. They really are for primarily single individuals, seniors, students, young professionals. Although, as I said, we have a number of very close couples that seem to enjoy living in our units. And all the power to them. I think it's probably a good test. If you can live in one of our units for a couple of years, you probably should get married, right? So, and the last thing is, and I know it's a concern I've only been made aware of it just very recently, that there's a concern that our unit is some kind of a hotel. And the size of the units are about the size of a typical hotel room. But let me make it very clear. This is a residential building. The absolute primary purpose and intention is for long-term residential tenants. Our leases in Antigonish are 12-month leases. Even when we give our tenants the option of not being there for the summer months, and some of our students obviously are not in Antigonish during the summer, what amazes me is how many of them do not take us up on that option. If I were competing with the B&Bs and the hotels in Wolfville, I would say so. And I'd say, look, you know what, it's a free market system, that's life. The reality here is this is a residential building. We do have provisions for short-term overnight accommodation, but actually the main purpose of that is not, we have very little interest in having daily overnight residents staying. We're not equipped for it. There's no lobby, there's no on-site check-in. I mean, the process is, people, and when we've done short-term rentals, we treat them essentially like tenants who are only staying there for a week or two. And that's really the target market there. If we have any units in the summer, it's for, imagine if there's a professor coming to Wolfville to do a research project for a month and a half. They can't rent an apartment. They're not going to stay in a student dorm. They probably don't want to stay in a hotel, where they don't have any cooking facilities. Our facility, if it's available, would be perfect for that. And so that's the kind of short-term overnight accommodation that we're allowing in this development agreement. So when Greg said, Chris, can we restrict it to 30%? Doesn't matter. That's not an issue for us. Our primary focus and goal is long-term residential development. So I say that not because if somebody else can come and put a hotel in, I think that's their right to do that. The reality is this is not a hotel, it's a residential unit. I will say, however, who should be concerned from a competitive perspective? I live in Antigonish. I am quite close to a lot of my students. I've been teaching for 18 years, and I'm appalled at how some of our students are treated in the accommodation that's available to them in Antigonish. And the same goes with some of our other tenants in apartment buildings. They get away with murder. They're allowed to charge in Antigonish up to $500, $550 per month for a room in a rundown 5 or 6 bedroom home. Actually, the houses are only 4 or 5 bedrooms, but they stuff 6 or 7 people in there. My development, absolutely. If you have that kind of a rundown accommodation, if you run an apartment that's not up to standard, you know what? I make no bones about it. I will be competing with that, and I hope that as a result of this development, either those landlords will increase the quality of their accommodation, or else they'll exit. And I think that's a good thing for the town. I think it's a good thing for the residents of the town, be them seniors or students or young professionals. So those were the concerns that I sat down and went through, and I thought, you know what, I think we've addressed the main concerns. If there's any others, I think you've seen in all the public meetings we've had, I've been very open to answering questions. I will do so again. I have nothing to hide. I come with this from a very positive perspective. And I guess I just want to finish off, and I know I'm taking a bit of extra time here. I want to finish off on the positive side of things. These are the negatives that have had to be addressed. On the positive side, I think this is a real chance for Wolfville to be positioning itself in a leading edge development. These developments are springing up in kind of some of the smartest, coolest places on earth. New York has now just changed its laws to allow this kind of development. And so a new development is being sponsored by Mayor Bloomberg there. There's developments like this in Boston. There's developments like this in Surrey, in BC. Victoria has a 100-unit building going up now right on Main Street, or right in the downtown core of Victoria. The reason why this is positive is it brings people into your downtown core. We've all traveled to many parts of Nova Scotia and seen towns where the downtown core is devastated because the Walmarts and so on have pulled the downtown commercial in. The best way to counter that is to have people living downtown. Our development in Antigonish has doubled the downtown population. There's been not a single complaint or issue from anybody in the public in terms of our residents downtown, and I'm proud to say that. I think that's marvelous. It will help in the new visioning for the eastern end of Main Street. We've already seen one major development there happen in the last year and a half or so with Pete's development. There's a growing commercial revitalization of that part of town. I would be proud for this building to be part of that vision for this new redevelopment of the eastern end. And clearly it's going to be a combination of residential and commercial mix. And I think that's a very good thing for Wolfville. We'll get rid of a building that is past its prime, to be charitable about it, and create something that's new and beautiful and also very exciting and functional. Of course, there's also other benefits in terms of, there's going to be quite a few $1 million spent on this redevelopment that will employ people, it brings jobs and so forth. It increases the town's tax base. These are all, very powerful positive benefits, but sometimes they're worth repeating because it's not just negative, there's a lot of positive values here. So I leave you with the thought that I think the issues, and this has been a very stringent public process for me. There's been a lot of my phone bill to your town office is quite dramatic, but what I'm pleased to say